And you saw the governor's announcement about AU being forefront of all this and center of all the testing. So I think there has been put together a lot of effort in statewide testing, and the GEM Lab is the center of that testing. So we receive sample all across Georgia. I think these are collected by the National Guard. They're sent to us in the batches. We get somewhere between 500 to 1,000 pieces a day. And that definitely is going to be helpful in identifying what the trend looks like. Because there are so many projections of this might happen, that might happen, but all that is mathematical modeling. In reality, what dictate is actual testing of asymptomatic people, and that's what we're doing.
So the 500 to 1,000 samples that you get in, how long does it take you to turn those around?
24 hours.
So people are getting answers within a day or two?
I would say 2 days, because there's a lot of pre-analytical processing happens. These are handwritten accessions. People have to read them, put it in an electronic system, create a label, arrange them in a sequence. That actually takes a lot of time.
So there's still, we talked about a lot of manual stuff that goes on. You have to open these packages.
Yes.
Put them in.
Yeah, that actually adds 24 hours to the whole process.
So how many of these samples can you run now at a time?
So we still run 92 samples in one run, but the way we have put together the workflow is you start 92, another 2 hours you add 92, and that train keeps on going as long as we have samples to run. So the actual instrument takes 92 to 94 samples at one given time with the controls, but you can keep on adding 92 to 94 samples to that process. It's like a the chain factory, where you have one thing gets built in, then you get another in 2 to 3 hours. So that kind of setup we have put together.
Like an assembly.
Assembly line. There you go. I was looking for that word.
So doing the math real quick. So that'd be about 1,100, just shy of 1,200.
Correct. So the other limitation is the actual instrument. These are magnetic instruments, and these magnets get hot, so they need a couple of hours of rest. So we have to. Otherwise, there's automatic shutdown on these instruments. So we keep them silent or quiet for a few hours every night, and that's why I think 1,000 samples is what is one of the best guesstimate I can give you based on the assembly line kind of structure.
So at this time, are there times where you're actually run out of samples and you're waiting for other samples to come in?
So it all depends on the day. For example, there was a tornado or very bad weather. I don't think there was a good collection on that day. So the next day was little okay for us. So we got a breather with 500 samples. But so I don't think there might be a few hours where we didn't have samples, but the assembly line is pretty much going on.
And so as far as just being able to give the state, I think the state lab was running around 200 samples.
The Georgia Department of Public Health. I honestly don't know. I think that they put together a very similar setup, and they should be able to put together a similar output.
Because one of the questions has been, not to get into the whole what the governor's doing kind of thing, they really need to have a better idea of what is out there than what they have to this point. I think when he made that announcement, we were somewhere around 1% of the state had been tested.
Yeah.
So with this operation and others, you feel like you'll get to a better percentage?
Yeah, definitely. I think there will be. I think the part of the task force have activated 3 or 4 labs, and their capacity will eventually increase to that level where we should be looking at a pretty significant testing for the state. I think at this moment the way the National Guard are doing is they're going to individual hotspot where they would think that no testing was done before, and they want to get a feel of what would be a percentage of testing in that particular zip code or region. And you're talking about these are asymptomatic regular testing. I think the eventual goal is 30 sites across the state, which will be feeding these labs, including ours.
And so right now the idea is go to the worst places, get those tested first,
Yeah.
and then spread out to more general testing.
Correct.
And so do you feel like we can get to asymptomatic testing?
Right now we're doing asymptomatic testing.
Oh, you are.
Yes.
And any idea how that's running? Are we seeing a lot of positives among asymptomatic?
I think that is going with the trend what originally we had, and all that data I think is public through GP or DPH.
Because I'm noticing when I'm looking at AU's tests that they're reporting through AU Health and University, that a far greater number of negatives come back than positives on almost every run.
Yeah.
At most we get, 10 or 20 positives and 100 negatives.
So I think even maybe I don't remember when exactly the testing criteria would change, because you remember the bulk of the testing in March and early April was symptomatic. I think maybe I may be wrong, but I think when the governor announced it, that might be the time when the testing was a little loose, and then pretty much everyone can get tested depending on the SPOC sites, and that may be the reason why you see these numbers changed.
So you feel like you're at full capacity at this point, or is there something else you want to add?
No, I think at this moment we're full capacity. We're working with the National Guard and the task force to see if there is something we could get new instruments, or what's the goal in the next 2-3 weeks to increase the capacity. But at this moment, you have to remember, Tom, if we take a few days ago, we were not equipped or trained to do something like this. So from nothing to 1,000 samples a day is pretty significant task for us, especially even if we are a small academic lab. We are not trained, but we actually now are pretty much working like a reference lab for the state.
Well, actually, you are a reference lab regionally.
Yes.
I think the last thing I saw, you had done 1,300 reference lab samples for other healthcare providers. Well, very good. So antibody testing, has that been considered at all here, or is that somebody else's problem?
No, I think it is considered here. I think the field is evolving. I think we talked about, I gave a grand rounds on that serology-based testing. The challenge with serology-based testing is it has to be paired with PCR, because even if I can show you what FDA's guidelines is, you cannot take serology as a standalone test, because the problem is you have two antibodies, IgM and IgG. So IgM antibody for coronavirus is such a high cross-reactivity. So the non-COVID-19 coronavirus also produce IgM. And that has been the biggest challenge, that you go out and only do serology and you get IgM. It doesn't mean anything unless you are PCR positive. So the thing which I'm trying to propose is we need to have a PCR plus serology approach, so that you do a PCR, you get a positive, then you do a serology, IgM. So we know the IgM is coming from COVID-19. And then later on the same patient is PCR negative, and then he or she gets IgG. So we know that the IgG is coming from a negative PCR.